Big news breaking over the weekend and being confirmed today by the Duke men's basketball staff. Jay Lucas will be the newest assistant coach for the Duke Blue Devils. They do indeed go outside of the Brotherhood. We're going to tell you all show long why this is such a significant hire by Jon Scheyer and how it improves the trajectory of this Duke men's basketball program. Josh Cox, my buddy, joins me on this Monday edition of Locked On Blue Devils.
You are Locked On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. My name is JJ Jackson, the host of the show here today. Thank you so much for making Locked On Blue Devils your first listen every day, your first watch. If you're joining us here on YouTube, follow me on Twitter, if you will, @_JJ_Jackson_. Been a lifelong Duke fan, work in the sports media world, and love talking all things Duke basketball 5 days a week right here on Locked On Blue Devils. Make sure you follow us on Twitter @LO_Blue Devils for all of the show notes. You can subscribe and follow Locked On Blue Devils for free wherever you get your podcast. You'll get the latest episode of this podcast as soon as it comes out each and every day. Be sure to also subscribe to our Locked On Blue Devils YouTube page. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Devils your first listen and first watch each and every day. Big time news today for the Duke men's basketball program as they announced the official hiring of Jay Lucas as their assistant coach. So what a big day this is for the Duke basketball world as Jay Lucas will come and take over that last spot on Jon Scheyer's bench. And joining me here to discuss the latest is my good buddy, Josh Cox from Duke Football Talks Section 17 podcast. How big of a day is this? How big of a story is this, Josh, that Jay Lucas is the next head coach or assistant coach?
Yeah, absolutely. It's great news. I mean, if you look at number one, you're taking the premier recruiter away from Kentucky and from Coach Calipari there. So I think that's huge in the grand scheme of things, and then to go outside of the family, the Brotherhood a little bit, and to get somebody with a fresh perspective, with a fresh set of eyes, I think that's always important. I mean, obviously, staying inside the Brotherhood is good in a certain way, but I think having at least one guy on that bench that's not a Duke guy is a good thing. And so I am really intrigued to see what Jon Scheyer and Jay Lucas do together in the recruiting world. I mean, in 2021, if you looked at the 24/7 sports top recruiters in the nation, Jon Scheyer was number one in the nation, Jay Lucas number two in the nation. And so you put those two guys together here in Durham, I really, really like the hire.
That's the biggest takeaway from everybody in this. It's that little stat, that little nugget that we learned was that, 24/7 sports, they rank coaches based on how well they recruit, which is a cool metric to have. And it's Jon Scheyer number one, Jay Lucas number two. And then you're sitting there thinking, does Duke really even need help recruiting? I mean, Jon Scheyer already has the number one class signed for 2022. He's got the number one class, 5 commits already in 2023, and yet he goes out and gets one of the youngest rising stars in the industry. Jay Lucas, only 33 years old, and he's the newest assistant coach. I mean, why add him if Duke's already recruiting at such a high level?
Well, yeah, number one, I mean, you want to hold on to that because there are those who think, and I think it's a logical thought, that part of the recruiting success that Jon Scheyer had was simply because Mike Krzyzewski was in that locker room. And so I believe you bring in a guy like Lucas to just fortify our number one standing. And then I also think on the X's and O's and the coaching side, when you have a staff that's made up of Chris Carrawell and Emil Jefferson, you obviously need somebody that could come in and work with the guards and things like that. And that's what he would do, having played, obviously, and not only in college, but then playing a little bit in the G League and a little bit professionally, I believe, overseas as well. So he's going to bring some of that knowledge. Once again, just a home run hire. There's still now that director of player development position, Emil Jefferson's old position, Nolan Smith's prior to that. That position still available. Will be interesting to see who Duke gets there. I don't even know where to start on that because I think guys who might fit that position are still trying to play. Like I'm thinking about like a Quinn Cook. I'm thinking about like even a Matt Jones. I don't know. Guys like that were developmental players here. Could they take that role just to get their foot in the door? But who knows? But hey, this is a heck of a staff already that Jon Scheyer's put together.
Jon Scheyer has a quote released by the Duke media staff. Quote, Jay embodies everything I was looking for in this role. I've been impressed by his winner's mindset, great feel for the game, and strong work ethic. Through his impressive playing and coaching career, he has built extraordinary relationships across the basketball landscape and shown a unique ability to connect with student athletes. I could not be more excited to welcome Jay, his wife Corey, and son Jackson to Durham, end quote. So Jay Lucas, the newest assistant coach for the Duke men's basketball staff. They're already going to start forming awesome relationships with the recruits that are already there. We talked last week on the program how 2023 commit Jared McCain had an in-home visit from Coach Scheyer and staff and how crazy that was to see. Jared McCain was also in the headlines this past week as he signed an NIL deal with Kay Jewelers ahead of Mother's Day. He's got over 1.4 million followers on TikTok, and I believe the number is like 800 some odd thousand followers on Instagram. And so we're already seeing players able to cash in on their NIL value. And Jared McCain is going into his senior season of high school, and he's now got this NIL deal with Kay Jewelers. That was pretty cool to see.
Yeah, I mean, smart on his part, right? I mean, at this point, the NIL is like the Wild Wild West, and everything's on the table. And so I hope every one of these guys does everything they can to make as much money as they can before the regulations start coming. I'm sure they're going to come at some point in time. So right now, man, these guys should take advantage of everything they can, and I'm all for it. I'm on the Jay Billis wagon on this. Open up the doors. Let's see what happens. It'll all work itself out. Here's the deal. These guys will get money. These companies like Kay Jewelers and even boosters from schools, they're going to pay, but then they're going to realize that college sports are not as sure of a thing as pro sports. And so at the end of the day, I believe it's going to correct itself. I believe that at the beginning, you're going to see there's going to be high dollars put in. But I believe over time, those guys are going to see, hey, listen, I paid for this 5-star recruit. And if I can just throw a name out there, he turned out to be Patrick Baldwin Jr. And I'm not trying to clown on Patrick Baldwin Jr., but I'm just saying. And I think they're going to be like, man, that wasn't money well spent. And so I think it's going to correct itself for guys like McCain, Lively. I mean, Paulo last year. Man, get it while you can get it. I'm all for it. This is America. Make you some money.
Duke gets a transfer commit over the weekend on the men's basketball team as well. Really exciting news as the team for next year continues to expand. We'll tell you about that new recruit coming up in just a moment. Today's edition of Locked On Blue Devils is brought to you by our friends over at Built Bar. Built Bar is so good. Summer is coming, and with summer coming, you're going to need some food on the go. Built Bars are the perfect snack to take with you on family vacations and everywhere you go. All Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate. That means with Built Bar, you can eat healthy and actually enjoy doing it. As most Built Bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. If you compare that to a candy bar, which usually has around 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs, you're making the best decision when you choose Built Bar. Go to Built.com. You can get all of your favorite flavors over there. Promo code LOCKED15, LOCKED15, and get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. Welcome back into Locked On Blue Devils. JJ Jackson hanging out here with my buddy Josh Cox from Duke Football Talk Section 17 podcast. Follow their show on Twitter at DukeFB Talk. We saw the NFL draft come and go. Unfortunately, our guy Mateo Durant was not selected in the NFL draft, but did sign an undrafted free agent deal with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Excited to see him get his professional career off and going. And you can listen to the Duke Football Talk guys talk all things Duke football on their podcast feed. All right, I teased it a moment ago, so I got to be good at the showbiz thing and follow up on the tease that we gave. Duke does get a commit over the weekend. Northwestern transfer Ryan Young, who we discussed on last week's show, was scheduled to visit Duke. He decided, I'm going to transfer to Duke University, pursue a master's degree, already has a degree from Northwestern, and has 2 years of basketball eligibility remaining. I mean, this is huge, literally, because he's 6'10" or whatever he is. But it's also a big pickup to add that interior depth.
Well, I think the biggest thing is the 2 years of eligibility. If he chooses to stay, this is not just for this coming year, but it's also for the following year. And we can always use depth. If history has taught us anything, you think back to the hate to do this to the Duke fans. You think back to the Final Four game, man, we could have used as many big men as possible. If you remember, Theo John picked up 4 fouls in the first half. So having more big men, we'll never complain about that. You add that. Now I think it's pretty obvious that the Cale Catchings transfer is really just layered depth at the end of the day. I believe he's going to play a very limited role. But it is interesting to see that both of our transfers come from programs coached by former Duke guys, and Tommy Amaker there at Harvard, and then obviously at Northwestern with Chris Collins. And so kind of neat, and maybe it's just the Duke family not trusting other people. I don't know what it is, but I'm cool with it because it's been good so far.
Well, you mentioned Theo John last time, or last season, I should say, playing for Duke. He also came from the Brotherhood connection with Steve Wojciechowski being at Marquette. Chris Carrawell, the current assistant coach for the Blue Devils, was at Marquette with Steve Wojciechowski and had a prior relationship with Theo John. But let me ask you a follow-up there. Why, Josh, do you feel like, you said, I think this is more obvious, that Cale Catchings becomes added depth for the Blue Devils as well? Tell me about that.
Yeah, I just see Young being a better player. And I know Catchings is not as tall.
Right.
But I just see him being a much better player. I mean, averaging almost 10 points a game coming off the bench at Northwestern is pretty impressive. And,
in the Big Ten,
so I think I have not watched his game, but I'm assuming he'll be able to maybe spend time at the 4 and the 5. You got Mark Mitchell as well. That's gonna obviously be a major part of the rotation. And so at the end of the day, there's only so many minutes to go around to so many guys, and so I feel like Ryan's going to come in and probably take that Theo John role, if I had to guess.
So taking a look at this Duke basketball roster, you've got the 6 incoming freshmen, you've got 3 returners, and Jeremy Roach, Joey Baker, and Jalen Blakes. You have to wonder what Trevor Keels will decide to do if he does stay in the NBA draft process. He's kind of the one guy in limbo, so to speak. Everyone at this point in the Duke Twitter world loves when Trevor Keels does anything on social media because it could add to your theory. Like Ryan Young, he reposted it on his Instagram story, did Trevor Keels. So he's coming back, Josh. That's what it means. It's always fun to follow the speculation.
Yeah, and I mean, I wish these guys wouldn't do it because you're right. The fans overreact, to everything. I mean, at the end of the day, even if Trevor is leaving, he's still going to be a Duke fan. He's still going to be happy when players commit to Duke.
Right.
So it's really not anything to look into. But, we are waiting on Trevor Keels. And then there's obviously other names being thrown around that transfer portal. Should Trevor choose to remain in the draft? And if Trevor does choose to remain in the draft, I wouldn't be surprised, once again, in this wide open transfer portal, to see guys wait until after that and try to get into Duke. And so who knows? I mean, we definitely have a void at the 2 guard. We definitely do. And it'll be interesting to see come the summer who is in that position.
Yeah, everything's kind of flying by since Duke lost in the Final Four. And here we are at this point officially kicking off the Jon Scheyer era. And to catch everyone kind of up to speed, it was a week or so ago that we had the early entrant deadline that all players that wanted to forego their remaining eligibility to go to the NBA draft had to announce they wanted to enter the draft and still have the opportunity to come back. So that came and went. And then this past weekend, we had the deadline for players to enter the transfer portal. And so that came on Sunday. A couple of people reporting that, okay, this could take a day or two for schools to officially get the paperwork settled and players to enter the portal. The most notable one was Kerwin Walton at UNC being a late addition to the portal. But somebody like Jalen Blakes did not enter the portal, a point guard coming back for his sophomore season. So we'll see what it means for Duke moving forward. But there are a couple of names out there that Duke is still attached to, because I think there is still kind of a need for another two-guard guy to come in.
Yeah, and once again, who knows? Who knows what's going to take place with that? You've got NIL money being discussed with many of those guys. And once again, I'm all for it. I just don't know that a program like Duke is going to try to get into a bidding war over a transfer. I don't know. Maybe we do. And so it'll be interesting. I mean, listen, we're spoiled at Duke. We're spoiled. Any other program that's got a guy like Jaden coming in, that's a 4-star 2-guard that can shoot the lights out.
Right.
They're fine with that. And you know what? At the end of the day, if it's a Whitehead playing some 2 and the 3, you know what I mean? We're going to be fine. We're going to be fine. We got a roster full of McDonald's All-Americans. We're going to be okay. And so, you know, we've been spoiled by getting literally whoever we want. And we will be just fine if things don't fall exactly the way we want them to fall this offseason. We're going to be okay.
Jay Lucas, the new assistant coach for Duke men's basketball. Ryan Young transfers over from Northwestern. Also, one of my favorite things to do every week, catching up with Josh Cox, is check back in on the NBA playoffs, because so many Duke Blue Devils at the next level are making noise. We'll talk about one of those guys coming up in just a moment. Today's edition of Locked On Blue Devils is brought to you by our friends over at BetOnline. BetOnline is the #1 source for all your betting stats and sports information. Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's basketball playoffs and the start of the Major League Baseball season. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Final few moments here of Locked On Blue Devils today. JJ Jackson hanging out with my buddy Josh Cox from Duke Football Talks Section 17 podcast. Last week, we talked a good bit about Jason Tatum and the Boston Celtics taking down Kyrie Irving and Seth Curry. How about we talk a little bit about Boston taking on the Milwaukee Bucks? Yesterday, Sunday, game 1 of the Eastern Conference semifinals, we saw the Milwaukee Bucks pick up a big win on the road at Boston. But one of the big stories for the Bucks this postseason has been the play of former Duke Blue Devil Grayson Allen. He has been tremendous for the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yeah, and I understand that the majority of basketball fans out there have a hate relationship when it comes to Grayson Allen.
Yeah.
But when you look at the numbers that he's putting up and I mean, and just the increased usage over his previous 2 seasons in the playoffs, I mean, you cannot deny the impact that he's having. He's playing more minutes in the playoffs than he's ever played in his life. He is shooting the ball more attempts than he's ever attempted in his 3 seasons. And his percentages, his overall field goal percentage, 58.3%. His 3-point shooting percentage, 56.7% from the 3-point line. That is
crazy.
Absolutely incredible. And you know what? I've tried to watch him throughout the playoffs. I've not watched the entirety of all of his games, but it seems like every time I turn on a game that Milwaukee's playing in, Grayson hits a 3. The other day, I think he hit 3 in a row in a stretch there for the Bucks. And so, man, I can't say enough about him. I've actually noticed, too, one of his issues at Duke, obviously, and then even when he was at Utah, I remember Coach Snyder saying that Grayson's not going to see the court until he decides to be a defender. I remember legitimately that being a quote from Quinn Snyder. And we all know he struggled playing defense at Duke. But what I've noticed in Milwaukee, you can't be on a team with Drew Holiday and Brook Lopez and Giannis and not play defense. They're not going to stand for it. Right. And I've seen an increased intensity from Grayson on the defensive side of the ball as well. And so that all bodes well. That all bodes well for Grayson. He's doing nothing but helping himself and then, helping his team. I mean, that game 1 victory over Boston, we definitely we didn't see the best of the Jays, of Jason and Jalen there for the Celtics. They both struggled But man, the Bucks played well, and they're doing it without Chris Middleton. And you got to give kudos to those guys. I mean, I think we all have also figured out that Giannis is a different type player than Durant, and so it's going to be a little different for the Celtics.
No kidding. The other game that we saw yesterday, another first game of the second round, first game of the Western Conference semifinals between the Golden State Warriors and Memphis Grizzlies. Really exciting game, back and forth throughout the entire game, and really thrilling final 6-7 minutes of that ball game. The Warriors ultimately win by a single point, but Memphis getting a ton of contribution from Tyus Jones.
Yeah, and if you go back to their clinching game against Minnesota, I mean, he hits the clutch shot, which is Duke fans know you can just expect it. But I just thought it was neat that he's in their closing lineup, and I mean he's playing over guys like Dylan Brooks and players like that are obviously good players that would probably be more physically imposing than Tyus. But he just makes such good decisions. He hits such big shots and plays solid defense. And so if Memphis continues on, and I tell you what, it's going to be difficult against a team like Golden State. But if they continue on, I mean, Tyus Jones is going to play a major role. I think Ja loves playing with him, and Ja's not intimidated by Tyus, and Tyus is not intimidated by Ja. They complement each other well when they're on the court together, and so that bodes well for the former Blue Devil for sure.
I can kind of tell that there's that complementary piece with those two guys, and it does seem like they play well together as well. So, Josh, let's kind of wrap up today's show, talk a little bit about this Duke basketball team, and obviously we've got the NBA draft coming up. We love the postseason, and to see where all these former Duke Blue Devils are going to be playing their next steps. In addition to that, we've got Jay Lucas again today being named the newest assistant coach. Ryan Young transfers in. I mean, what's kind of the next big headline you're looking for Duke men's basketball?
It's all about Trevor Keels. That's what we're waiting on, right? We're waiting on the final announcement there. Obviously, and this is my opinion, I'm sold on the fact that he's going to stay in the draft simply because, if your expectations are low, then if things are different, you're really excited, right? If I put my expectation level so high, I'll be disappointed. So I'm just getting myself prepared for him not being here and to see what happens with those couple of guys in the transfer portal. And then if not, once again, let's roll the ball out there and play basketball next year. It's going to be fun. We've got a solid recruiting class. I believe in Coach Scheyer and what he's got. But, yeah, Trevor Keels is what we're waiting on from between now and the time that they can withdraw their name. And so we'll see.
Tell people about the Section 17 podcast. New logo out there on the internet.
Yeah, new logo. Got some merch going to be hitting in a little while as well. But yeah, we just posted a couple weeks ago our spring ball wrap up, and so be sure to go check that out if you haven't yet. We talk about all things spring practice and the spring game. We've got some things planned in the off season, some interviews that we want to have, shooting a little bit for the Stars on some interviews, but stay tuned. Like I said, some merch stuff coming. That's all I will say. But it's more than a sticker this time. All right, we promise you that. By the way, not only shout out to Mateo, speaking of the football team, but Josh Blackwell also landed with the Philadelphia Eagles, and when we were at Pro Day for Duke, he stood out among the other guys, and so really excited for him to get a chance. And we'll see what happens there. I believe Mateo, and pretty incredible the 3-year contract that Mateo was able to land from the Steelers, and a $15,000 signing bonus, and really pretty incredible. And so kudos to his agent and Mateo. I couldn't be happier for a kid than I am for Mateo, and going into a stable organization with a stable head coach and a stable owner. Like, to me, you couldn't ask for a better situation.
Sometimes as an undrafted guy, in a way, you've got the upper hand as opposed to possibly a 7th-round pick, so to speak, because you get to pick where you want to go. You get to kind of float through some offers. Everybody wants to get drafted. That's the dream. By no means am I trying to change the narrative there for Mateo Durant, but to look at the brighter side of things, I get to choose the franchise that I'm going to go play for. As an undrafted guy, they've got such a sensational running back in Najee Harris, who just finished out his rookie year. So that running back room is going to be in good shape and up to good standard. And I think that'd be just an added bonus and a great benefit to Mateo Durant for sure.
You're exactly right. I mean, you look at the kid, Ross from Clemson.
Yes.
Who took his time. I mean, he wasn't drafted. Justin Ross, that's it. He took his time, wasn't drafted, and he didn't sign immediately. And what I assume he did was he probably got a few teams that called him, and guess what? He decided to sign with the Chiefs, which is like, okay, if I can go play with Patrick Mahomes, that's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
And so yeah, man, I'm excited. I mean, I think once you get past like the 4th, 5th round and those last couple rounds, if I'm guys, I'm like, hey, I'm cool being a free agent. I'm okay with that.
No kidding. Josh, I really do appreciate the time. Thanks for joining me on the podcast today, man.
Hey, have a great day, JJ. Thanks for having me, man.
That is Josh Cox from Duke Football Talks Section 17 podcast, joining us here today on the program, talking about all the latest news going around the Duke men's basketball world. Do make sure you check out that Section 17 podcast. Those guys do a great job. Go to their Twitter at Duke FB Talk so you can visualize that new logo that we're talking about them. Make sure you follow and subscribe our podcast right now. You'll be able to get the latest episodes of Locked On Blue Devils as soon as they become available each and every day. Please also take this opportunity to like and subscribe to our Locked On Blue Devils YouTube page. On tomorrow's show, my buddy Jason Evans from the Duke Basketball Report will be back to talk all things Duke hoops with me. I'll get his thoughts on the Jay Lucas hire, what it means for the future, and tease a little podcast that's coming up for the Duke Basketball Report that you don't want to miss. That's going to do it for another edition of Locked On Blue Devils. As always, go Duke. I'll talk to you tomorrow. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you and good day.